In today's video, I'm talking about the Fed's master plan for 2022 and what implications it has on the US dollar. If you trade anything to do with the US dollar, talking XAU USD, USDJPY, Euro USD, pound dollar, this video is made specifically for you, and I want to encourage you to stay tuned to the very end because we're going to talk about some very, very important things. Let's get into it. Welcome back, you guys, to the channel. My name is Nick. We talk all about Forex here, and today the US dollar is in focus. And we just had a speech from the Fed, or Jerome Powell, the chairman for the Fed, and he made some interesting points and kind of reiterated what the Fed's outlook for 22 is, right? 2022 is a year for the books because we've had a lot of interesting stuff building up to this year. We had a pandemic, now we have the post-pandemic, and inflation is a serious concern here in the United States, as it is in many other places. So what can we expect for the US dollar? What kind of predictions and outlooks can we reasonably look forward to going into the rest of this year? Well, that's a very hard answer to answer, but I'm going to do my best. So stay tuned, hit the like button, and let's get it. Okay, so when we're looking at the dollar has been kind of sideways in recent price action. Let's look at the daily chart for a second. You can see it's been pretty choppy, but the Fed has some interesting narratives going on. Couple things to mention, and we'll list them out on the screen so you can see. I'll make some room so we can write them out here. Couple things that the Fed has on the docket. Right now, the forecast is 3 rate hikes for 2022. That's the outlook, that's the expectation, that's what a lot of people like Goldman Sachs has been predicting, 3 rate hikes for 2022. That has a huge implication on the US dollar. We'll talk about that in a second. The second thing is the tapering process that is going on right now. The Fed is trying to actively reduce the amount of money that they spend to combat the inflation. Remember that if you spend and print a ton of money, that's bad for the currency, right? Well, the Fed doesn't want inflation to run rampant, especially with everything going on post-pandemic, supply line issues, and raises for workers, right? Inflation is kind of out of control, especially considering a lot of the senior kind of workforce is actually not choosing to come back to work. They've actually taken a lot of retirement, and that's kind of a scary thing for the inflation concerns. So again, what's the Fed up against? The Fed is up against big inflation, and the question is, do you buy gold or do you buy the dollar? And I'm going to go ahead and say I am siding with the US dollar for this year so far until further notice. So again, 2 main things. We'll reiterate them on the screen. The inflation concerns are being addressed by rate hikes, or at least that's the supposed forecast, and tapering. Both of those things have a strong implication on the US dollar and could cause more upside, in my opinion. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's talk about some setups. Let's talk about some ideas. If we're looking at the daily chart, which is going to be our focus for today, the dollar is very close to a level of support that I am looking to get involved at. Now, please remember, these are all my thoughts and opinions. I can be wrong about this, and just because I mentioned that I want to buy something does not mean that it's a guarantee it's going to go higher. Trust me, I can be wrong. Just ask my fiance. I'm kidding. But you know, the point is, the thing is, we can all be wrong, and this is just ideas. These are theories that, you know, we're looking for 2022 to be hawkish from the Fed and a dollar positive move. So I think that most likely there is some money to be made, but in the short term, things can get kind of crazy. So when we're looking at the dollar, I am personally watching for a breakout. We're looking at the DXY here, and the dollar index is a great way to start looking at the dollar on a grand scheme of things, because it gives us a view of the dollar against things like the euro, the yen, the Aussie, the Kiwi, the CAD, all at the same time. And so when we look at this, you can see we've been consolidating. We've found major support down here at 95.6. And now the question is, if we hold this area, can we finally get the breakout? And this is really the big signal on the higher time frames that I am personally looking for on the dollar. I would love a breakout of this range, specifically like getting above 96.4, let's say. So if we do see some dollar strength coming in, that is where I'm going to look to really add some pressure on to the upside, because I think very quickly we could see a retouch of the highs up here at like 97 in the year. And I would not be surprised if by the end of the year, we do continue to see this trend unfold to the upside. Now, from a bigger standpoint, there's the DXY, but let's actually go look at some individual currency pairs. I've talked recently a lot about the Euro USD, which is basically like an inverse. I mean, let's flip flop for a second. See DXY, take a visual picture, Euro USD, it's like flipped upside down, right? Because now we're talking about the euro against the US dollar, where that US dollar is the secondary currency. And the idea here being, looking at the daily chart, It's pretty much the exact same concept, but in reverse. I'm looking for this thing to continue to trend down as people favor the dollar over the euro. And that's been the story. Now the question is, can we get the technical breakout? And this is going to be the huge signal that I am waiting for on the US dollar. I'm waiting to see, can we get this move? Can we get a break underneath that 1.13 level for a possible retest of the lows of 2021? To mark that as a key area, we can go ahead and let me just add this. There we go. 1.12 is the low of last year and where I expect price to reasonably head if we see a breakout on the euro dollar. So how could we get involved? Well, a breakout here would be the first signal with a pullback opportunity as an entry point for myself and my trading, with stops probably over structure. I know it's a little bit far away, or at least the idea, but if you get a big red candle, all of a sudden this thing could be in play, in action right now. So Euro USD, that's the idea. Now let's continue on. I'll take a look at another currency pair that I'm currently looking at, dollar yen. I'm long already on this with the idea being a retest of the previous high of year. So actually, let me go back to the daily chart for a second and check this out. So we tagged 115.4 last year towards the end of the year, and then we dropped like a rock. But then this year, January 4th was a big day for the dollar yen as we spiked past that level. And now on the retest, I decided to get long. We'll see if this works out, but my idea here is essentially break, retest of the year, last year's high with a continuation play in mind. I think that the dollar yen is probably one of my most interested currency pairs going into this year, 2022. It is still January, so we have plenty of time to see if these trends can unfold and continue. But if we look at the 4-hour chart here, a little bit closer, you can kind of see we're struggling in this range here to break out. So I would ideally like to see this thing try and make a break for outside of this range and continue. I think a reasonable place to see dollar yen go would be the previous high, 116.2, which again marks the high of the last 365 days for sure, as this dollar yen continues to trend higher. Now we'll see if my trade setup plays out. If not, I'll take a small stop loss. I have a very small position size on, as we do have quite a bit of news this week. But there's dollar yen. I do like the idea of buying in this general area. The retest of last year's high looks like a pretty reasonable setup with pullbacks too steep, stopping me out at 114.83. So we'll take a look next at, let's take a look at another currency pair, USDCHF. This is another one I am currently long biased on, but would really like to see a breakout here at 92.7. So if we can get above this level, this is another pair that I do like the idea of going long on, especially against the Swiss franc. The Swiss franc, the idea here being the CHF is historically a very it's a safe haven currency. People buy the Swiss franc in times of fear. They buy it when things are uncertain, but they buy the US dollar kind of the similar way, but the Swiss franc definitely takes a lead as a risk-off currency. So I do have a bullish bias, meaning my idea being, okay, I am actually bearish on the Swiss franc and bullish on the dollar. So I do like the idea of buying this thing, but I would love to see a breakout of this resistance at 92.6. So what I'm looking for is, consolidating here, but I'd love to see a breakout, retest concept, and continuations for the next few weeks, maybe possibly going out throughout the rest of the year. We'll see if we can get a move back to 93.65. That's kind of a higher time frame level that I'm watching for. And, ultimately could even lead to more breakout opportunities should we see a retest of those levels sometime here in the new year, right? So for example, if we were to break out, make a move here, and then we see another breakout, there could be several opportunities to take the dollar long against the Swiss franc, just going off of price action as well as our fundamentals here. Now, I do want to take a look together at some sentiment analysis with you guys. So if I head over to a1trading.com and scroll down to retail sentiment right now, retail sentiment is kind of interesting because we see kind of a recurring theme. We see a lot of people betting against the dollar. And so the euro dollar, you can see people are long on the euro, meaning buying the euro, shorting the dollar. You can see, for example, USD CAD. This one, people are actually buying the dollar, shorting the CAD, which is kind of cool for the retail traders. But again, it's kind of a recurring theme. If we take a look at dollar yen, for example, dollar yen, very short biased on the dollar, long biased on the yen, and so on and so on. So the idea here being, I'm looking for breakouts at key technical levels. I have the fundamental reasoning, which actually, let me share one more thing that might be interesting to you. So inside of the private Discord channel, where I share every trade that I take. I called out this trade setup on dollar yen, which we just got done looking at. I risked 50 pips, and we already talked a little bit about the technicals, that breakout of the high of last year. But the fundamentals, so as we mentioned earlier on in the video, right? Bullish on USD due to the expected 3 rate hikes in 2022, tapering, and overall a strong GDP bounce back here in the United States. So that's the idea about the dollar that I have. But now the time is looking for, so we have that fundamental bias. The question is now, can we get the technical breakouts that could lead to some setups? And with the DXY pulling back a little bit today, there may be some opportunities for some of those trending markets to find entries. So for example, if you're very dollar bullish, maybe there's some opportunities to short the Australian dollar against the dollar. If you are more risk off oriented, if you think that markets are a little bit pumped up and a little concerning right now, then you may want to actually side with the dollar against some of these higher risk currencies. Someone asked me recently what some higher risk currencies are. Things like AUD, CAD, GBP, right? Those currencies tend to be a little bit higher risk, and the dollar being that kind of safe haven relative to those ones. Whereas the most safe haven currencies are things like yen, Swiss franc, those, and gold, right? Which we should talk about. We'll take a look at XAU USD here. So gold making a move higher today. I've mentioned, and I mentioned on stream, I'm not really super interested in trading gold right now. I do think that overall, because I am very USD bullish, that if nothing else, I am sort of bearish on gold for the time being, because I do expect that should the Fed stick to their kind of plans here, which they have been in the last year or so, if they do stick to that, right, this would be a reasonable thing to expect this thing to continue to trend lower based on fundamentals, right? If the dollar becomes strong off of rate hikes, those things tend to put a damper on gold's return as people are less afraid of inflation. They're more confident in US bonds, US, buying the dollar, things like that. So generally speaking, I'm neutral / bearish on gold with a bullish outlook on the dollar. So I hope this video was helpful to you. Hit that like button, subscribe. We'll see you next time. What's up guys? Thanks for watching today's video. There are more videos available on our channel here and here, so go ahead and click into that for some more free trading content. With that said, thanks for watching. We'll see you back next time.